Are UFOs connected to consciousness? I'm not the only person that's asked that question. Tons of people have asked that question. Even if you follow Jesse Michaels, he continuously asks that question. Our good friend Pavel continuously asks that question. Anybody who covers this topic has explored that through things that have been reported, talked about, discussed. There's a lot of different things. If you look into the multi-millionaire, I think billionaire, Bigelow, who has been studying this for a long time, he seems to hint that that's the case, and people always ask that question. Do I believe that? I don't know. But this was an interesting story that popped up today that I figured I wanted to discuss, and that was that from Merrick VR, who posted this out, who asked the same question about UFOs and consciousness, said this. Merrick VR asked this question of UFOs and consciousness. Is legendary Navy SEALs Admiral William McRaven, commander who oversaw the bin Laden operation, participated in the recovery of remains of 9 service members. Okay, so again, the reason I wanted to bring this up is that what you're about to see, the interview that you're about to hear, is that this is a well-respected person in the military who gives this account of what he saw. Now, listen to what he saw. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's confirming the question that I just posed, but listen to this first.
But so now we have found the remains of the plane, and again, there were some. We eventually bring some of the family out that was fit enough to be there. We did manage to find some bone fragments, and we buried those at the site. But in the book, I tell the story, and I said you can believe it or not, but it is true, and I'm not the only one to have seen it. As we are kind of burying the remains of this thing, and I say a little prayer over this cross we put up there, and as I get through saying it, all of a sudden one of the guys turns to me and goes, "Hey, sir, take a look up there." And again, if you can imagine, we're in this bowl, and I think it goes up to about 8,000 feet or something like that. And right above the ridge line, I see what looks like a parachute flare. I'm thinking, is somebody shooting parachute flares? And I'm looking around thinking, well, maybe one of our guys is, shooting parachute flares. And nobody's shooting parachute flares. There's one, and there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and they're kind of hovering up there. And looking around thinking, what in the world? And the guy says, "Hey, sir, how many of those do you see?" And again, it's this kind of glowing orb, and it's just kind of floating up there, and there were 9 of them. And there were 9 victims on the plane. And it was up there for 10 or 15 minutes. They all kind of hovered up, and then one by one, they just kind of went up. So I said, look, you can believe the story or not, but I'm not the only one that saw it. And I've often thought, well, if somebody was firing parachute flares, please let me know, because it was kind of one of those surreal moments, because you are out in the outback where there is nothing out there.
It's the last part of it that makes me go, well, wait a minute. Because you're going to say, well, it was probably just, it could have been balloons, could have been this, could have been that. And you're in the outback. There's like nothing out there. And is it, because his first thought was, is it just one of our guys doing parachute flares? And then the idea that there's 9 of them. And then the idea that they're there for 15 minutes, whatever it was, and then they just kind of shot off. I don't know, man. Listen, like I said, I understand the point of people who are realists. I understand the point of people who are skeptics. I understand the point of people who just think that the world just goes to black when you check out. I get it. I understand it. I just don't know if I go down that road anymore. Now, this is different stuff that we normally talk about in this show, but I was like, after hearing a man of this stature talking about this in the way that he does, he's just telling you a story of something that he saw. And he says straight up, you can believe it or you can't. It's up to you. I'm just telling you what I saw. And I wasn't the only person that saw it. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I think that I might have saw it. No, there are other people there who saw it, who shared that experience together. And it was this story, like I always do. There's so many different things that I could talk about today. There's stuff that Jake Barber talked about. There's follow-up stuff with the drone stuff. There's all these different things. But I was like, when you have somebody like this, who is this well-respected, on the record talking about this type of thing, and it's a few of the things, as I mentioned, the first thing that stands out is the idea of that there was nothing out there, right? And then when he talked about like an orb. Now, there's been many different reports of what has been seen in the skies, right? Whether it's actual craft that's been recovered, all these different things. And then there's the idea of, and if you, depending on how deep the rabbit hole you get, if you go to the Zimbabwe case and other things about the way that beings or whatever is piloting these ships are able to communicate in a capacity that human beings can't. Because I think the first thing that we all do, which again I understand, because we're a creature who, if we can't see it, it's hard for us to believe it. If it can't be explained, it's hard for us to believe it. And when we start, because we are creative as a species, and we can come up with these fantastical ideas within books and movies and whatever they might be, that you can come up with these things, and you go, well, that seems like something that the imagination would create. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's real. And it doesn't. But it also doesn't mean that it's not real. And I've just gotten to a place in my life listening to these types of things. And it's easier for me to have these conversations with all of you. And there's tons of people who are listening to this right now, watching this right now, who don't buy into this and call it the woo-woo stuff or whatever it might be. But it is easier for me to discuss this with you than the normal people that are in my life. I don't mean normal people, but I'm saying the normal people who are in my circle that I see every day. And this is not a conversation that I bring up all the time, because I don't think that a lot of people that there are some people I could have this conversation with of the what ifs and everything too, but they're not following the situation. I feel more comfortable and free talking it to people in the comment section here because of the ideas and thoughts and studies and research that people have done and paying attention to this for so long. And you look at, I mentioned Jake Barber recently or earlier, and recently he was on that Ross Coldhart show, and he talked about how there was a kind of feeling that he got that overtook him around this thing. Is it all connected? Talking about the craft that he was around. And by the way, and I'll probably, like I said, I think I'll do another video on it, but they were talking about the drone stuff, and he said it wasn't FAA approved. It was complete nonsense. He worked on it, and he knows for a fact, it worked on things like that, and he knows for a fact it wasn't FAA approved. So there's other stuff going on there, which is also relevant to this conversation, because it's like, if there is confirmation, and I've always said this too, that let's say in what this story you get by listening to it is, well, those orbs that were seen out there, if they were indeed the spirits or whatever it might be of these 9 people who perished, and then they shot off into the sky or whatever it might be, that this guy just saw a paranormal type thing. And then you start to say, okay, if that is indeed what it is, and the paranormal is all connected to this in general, and if, with research over the last 70, 80 years, there were answers to this that we knew for sure, the world would change overnight, if it was definitive. That's why this stuff will never come out. If it is indeed, if anybody does know, they're going to keep it close to the vest. I'm not saying there's not some stuff that won't come out. There might. I asked that question. If you guys watch my interviews, I just had Ryan Graves on, which I'm going to be piecing out more of his interview. You'll start to see more clips pop up on this channel. But I ask, especially the high-profile people inside of the community like Graves, I asked them if they think that we're going to see disclosure in our lifetime, right? They all seem to say yes. And I think I liked Graves' answer the best. It was a little bit more detailed as far as like what form of disclosure we'll really see. I would encourage people to go and check that out, or just wait for the clip, because I'll clip it out. But full disclosure, meaning everything that they know, like everything, and not just about stuff with national security and other things, like the woo-woo stuff, as they say. Stuff that full, definitive answers about how we got here. Maybe they know that. Maybe they do. We won't know that. There are a lot of people who believe they know how we got here, because we've been told how we got here, one way or another. whatever belief you have, whatever religion you have, you believe that that's how we got here. You might not be wrong. But if there's information out there, some kind of information that says, well, listen to this. Too disruptive. The more and more. But this, the consciousness side of it, it's fascinating to me. I'm fascinated. That's why I want to talk about it today. I'm fascinated by it. The idea of it. What does it mean? Is it something in general? Is it? If you start thinking about that, the things that people have seen over the course of however many thousands of years of things in the sky and events that have been documented that they've seen that you can't imagine unless you see it in a movie. It's fascinating. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. Like I said, a little bit of a different story here today, but I'm curious what you guys think about this. Put your comments in there, put your thoughts in there, have a conversation on it. I really would love to hear what you think. I'm definitely going to do another Ryan Graves clip today, and I will most likely do a story about the Jake Barber thing. If I can get to it, I'm going to try. So thanks for being here. Subscribe to the channel. And that's it. Be part of the conversation, man. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. Thank you. Talk to you later.